All right, in this video, I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive into Apollo.io and why I think right now, at least, it's the best choice for an all-in-one outbound sales platform, especially for startups or B2B SMBs up into the mid-market. And this is mid-September of 2024, so things can change, obviously, but based on my experience, research, info in the market. This is kind of where I'm at right now. So, there's a few main reasons I think Apollo is really good for this. The major one being just simplifying kind of the outbound tech stack. If you look at all the features that Apollo has at this point, um, it can basically replace a ton of tools and simplify things. So, and I'll later on I'll dive down into each of these and kind of compare the vendors in these different areas. But ZoomInfo for data, Clay for kind of waterfall and AI personalization, either Smartlead or Instantly or others for the actual outbound emails, Clearbit or Dealfront for website visitor ID, UserGems for targeting past customers, and then even some like kind of rudimentary, I guess, features around um, like replacing maybe Gong, Aircall, Pipedrive, Calendly around dialing through VoIP, recording, getting call sentiment, even like rudimentary kind of CRM and meeting calendaring tools. So, I mean, depending upon the stage your company is at, that can make a lot of sense. So, I mean, for me, like the less tools, the better. It's in Apollo, has a pretty good UI. I think it just eliminates a lot of headaches and integrations and dealing with Zapier or having humans do things manually. So, I guess the one downside for something like this would be getting locked into one vendor. But so far, I think uh, it's worth that risk. And so, besides just kind of the simplicity and ease of use of having one all-in-one platform like this, the pricing is actually really fair to me. I mean, we'll get into some of this later, but I mean, they even have a free plan, or you can get pretty far even at a $49 or $70 a month seat plan. And, it's just, they get a lot of momentum in the marketplace. They raised a $100 million round of funding. They have a really good, strong product team. I know some of the people over there, and they have a good product roadmap. They just keep pumping out features and integrations and making it better and better. And so I'll dive into like kind of each of these high level categories to talk through them. And some of the things I see with Apollo and other vendors out there and things to consider. Around the data itself, I mean, I think Apollo's data is pretty good. It's probably comparable to like ZoomInfo, which has kind of been the market leader, has been in place for a long time. And to talk about pricing, I mean, you look at ZoomInfo, you're basically talking to a sales rep to get started, and they want probably like 15K plus, and they want an annual contract. So again, with Apollo, you can get started like for monthly plans, like $50 to $80 a month. Um, on the data side, there's lots and lots of data providers out there. Uh, Depending upon your niche, your industry, some of them can be better than others. Apollo's data may or may not be the best for you. Um, I think that's one of the good things about it, though, is you can always upload lists and create at times like custom either account or contact forms into Apollo in order to reach out to people and also segment the audiences and personalize the emails too. Um, and definitely, I think Sales Navigator in particular, like that's the one where it's probably always the most up to date information. Apollo has a good Chrome plugin for that uh, to build lists and pull in clean data. Um, Another thing to talk about on the data front, is this whole idea of like waterfall data. The big company that's hot that gets talked about a lot is Clay. Uh, it To describe Clay, if you're not familiar with it, it's almost like an Excel sheet on steroids, where you start with building like a contact list or an account list, and then through a waterfall approach, like different data providers, you ping their API to get more and more information, which can basically enriches the contact or the account, and then allows you to kind of do more with that, particularly around personalization. So you can kind of end up tapping into like chat GPT or something based on all the data inputs and coming up with a pretty good messaging. So I would say for Clay, there's two down. I've used it. I know it's powerful. There's two downsides to it to me. Number one is the cost. You're hitting these APIs. Clay like adds a margin on top of it instead of just whatever you're going to pay to one of these data providers. And the second thing is it is kind of complex. There's a whole cottage industry of like Clay consultants around that'll set this up for you if you want to go that route. And there's a lot of them are all over LinkedIn. I think Clay does a good job with like influencer marketing, and there's lots of people talking about it on there. But for me, if I go into Apollo, I mean, they have a lot of, if you know how to use Apollo, they have a lot of this data already. Like they have technographic data, meaning what technologies companies have installed. So instead of like going out to a built with or somebody else for that, they have intent data right in there that's provided through Bombora in order to identify accounts that are researching certain technologies or topics. They have job posting data. So jobs that are available and listed that companies are hiring for. And then also you can filter it by, let's say you wanted to target companies that had like between 5 and 50 sales reps. Like there's ways to do that. Same with retail locations. Even just a lot of the keywords, like Apollo can search a company's SEO descriptions or things, and you can build pretty targeted lists. It takes a little bit of work and know-how, but it can be done in all-in-one tool. And the same thing with like some of the signal data. So VC funding, opening up new offices, product launches, different growth signals or whatever. The big missing piece previously for Apollo, and that Clay kind of filled the gap on, was essentially AI-based personalization. So for each row of that spreadsheet, you dump all that stuff into a chat GPT prompt that you've created, and then it sends out a personalized email. So Apollo has this thing which I've gotten a look at, which is their power-ups. So it's in beta right now. But basically, a lot of that you can do in Clay and with ChatGPT or other models like that, you'll now or soon be able to do within Apollo. And for me, like I don't want to have to deal with like uploading lists all the time or Zapier's zaps that might break or integrating other things. Like if we can do that all in one tool, that's way better. So that's coming shortly, I believe. So that's kind of the data front. The main thing that Apollo has, so they have data and they have the outbound technology, which not too many vendors have both sides of that. So to look at some of the comparisons there, I mean, I think Instantly is one of the big ones that had gotten used a lot. They do actually have started to come out with their own data sources, but I haven't really heard too much about that. And they've also, I think, gotten dinged a lot on deliverability of emails recently. There's a lot of agencies and high volume emailers have like Instantly for a few different reasons, like the pricing, and you can do all sorts of clients and mailboxes through it. But I think with like their shared IP pools, I've heard a little bit that's gotten there's been some problems around that. The other one that I have used and definitely is good is Smartlead for outbound email and deliverability. They've been better historically at deliverability than Apollo, but although I think Apollo is focusing on that and kind of closing the gap, um, uh, like one of the things they do, Smartlead, is they'll do mailbox matching. So if you set up some Google mailboxes and Microsoft mailboxes for outbound, they'll send Google to Google and Microsoft to Microsoft, which can help. The pricing is also, depending upon your use case, might be cheaper. Apollo is usually one seat, five mailboxes. With Smartlead and also instantly, you can have a lot more mailboxes in there for one price. Um, but for Smartlead, like they don't have data, they don't really have a lot of these other features that Apollo has. Um, the other two to talk about, and there's tons of them, other companies obviously, and a lot of them are really good. But so Outreach and SalesLoft, just like to make a note for those sorts of companies. I mean, they were market leaders, especially like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and everybody got on them. As they mature, they go up market. They're costly, really, compared to this stuff. Not that they're not powerful, they are, and I think they have a lot of mid-market enterprise customers. But probably a lot of those companies, if they were going to build an outbound sales tech stack from scratch, might be looking at something like Apollo. But at this point, they have a big sales team maybe that know how to use the software. They're getting results. Like it's really hard to kind of rip and replace that. Um, the only one thing to note here as well, with Apollo, they have turned on their email warming feature again. They had it, then they got rid of it. Now it's back. So at one point, like I was using some other tools to help to do that, but now you can also do it in Apollo. Um, Another feature that they rolled out and helped consolidate the stack again is around account visitor ID. So basically, someone comes to your website, maybe doesn't fill out a form or identify themselves, but if you put the pixel on your website, Apollo has this now. The other companies are like Clearbit and Dealfront that had this. They run kind of a reverse IP lookup, figure out what account that person is from, and then they can report that back to you. And then in Apollo, there's a video down here. Basically, what we've done is connected that to the Apollo plays. So we've built personas. Okay, Bank of America comes to our website. We have a CIO persona for that account. Let's find that person, their up-to-date contact info, and then drop them into an outbound sequence and do that all automatically with a play in Apollo. So there's other providers like Clearbit. They were acquired by HubSpot. After that, you have to pay to access their API really, or do too much with it. Dealfront, is another decent charge depending upon how much traffic your site gets. So again, an opportunity to kind of consolidate things down there. And then the only thing other I would note is, so I've just been talking about like ID at the account level because of privacy, but there are some emerging tools that will do person level visitor ID. So tell you the exact person and title that came to your website, even if they didn't fill out a form. So there's companies like R2B and Pearl Diver that do that. There's some privacy considerations around that, definitely, but it's possible with the tech, and you could definitely integrate that with Apollo and do outbound outreach around that. And I have kind of a little bit of an article there around that. Another thing that we started doing for some companies is basically trying to target past customers. So there's apps like UserGems that does this, and they charge a good amount of money to do it. I know they have other features too, but this was kind of their main initial use case to find you're up. Basically, we knew this Apollo where we upload a list of your customers and champions, and then if they change jobs and they landed a new company that's fits your ICP, then we can set up an automation or play where let's either create a task for the sales rep maybe that owns that contact to reach out to them, or we could even just automate a play to have an email sequence sent out to them like, hey, saw you're a past customer of ours, like thank you for the business, saw you landed at a new company, would be great to talk or whatever. So there's a little tutorial on how to do that in Apollo there. So those are like definitely all those are things that can all be done in Apollo and consolidated down pretty much as good as any of those other companies. There are some other Apollo features which I wouldn't necessarily say is like as good as the other alternatives, but it can be good enough. For instance, like around scheduling, like I use Calendly a lot, but Apollo does have their own meetings integration and little feature. So, again, if you have like a more complex use case, you're going to be better off with Calendly. But if you just want kind of a bare bones meetings thing, and you can use the Apollo one, and the nice thing is it's tracked to all your outbound efforts. So if you want to look at ROI or attribution and things like that, you can figure that out. Another one, even Apollo has deals. So theoretically, if you're maybe just getting started, especially, maybe you can wait on buying like Pipedrive or HubSpot or some sort of more complex CRM, or at least for your outbound. So it's basically just kind of like a Kanban or Trello-like board with different sales stages that you can set up and tie to the contacts and some of the outbound efforts, and kind of use it as like a makeshift CRM. It's definitely not a relational database where you'd want to use it for real forecasting or crunching a lot of numbers or doing like crazy integrations or anything with workflows when customers come in or anything like that. But it's kind of good enough if you just want to have some simple tracking. And another one similar to that is around the VoIP calling. So you can do that right in Apollo. Click a button, set up a phone number. It'll record calls, even make a library of them, tie them to the CRM record in Apollo, and even do some like customer sentiment analysis, whether it was a positive call, negative call, whatever. Again, it's pretty good. If you want to go farther, then you can look at Gong or like Air Call or Just Call or Nooks or these other tools, but it's usually it's not bad, and I think that is probably an area where they're going to put more resources around. So that's kind of the overview of why I would use Apollo as one all-in-one tool for outbound to do all this, the data, the outreach, all this kind of automated outbound lead engine. If you wanted to get started with it, there's kind of a couple options. I mean, you can just go to apollo.io. They have a free plan, or the basic or pro, which are like $49 or $70 a month, are pretty good. It's like a self-board onboarding process. They do have really good documentation and a learning center and all that stuff. But I'm working with SaaSBoost.io. It's my agency. We're an Apollo certified agency partner. So I have a couple offers here. If you want to sign up through this basically affiliate link where I get a little bit of a kickback with a corporate email address, I'll give you like 20 minutes to walk through and answer questions and help you get set up. The other thing I do is have more of a full Apollo setup packages where I work with B2B companies, a lot of SaaS companies, but a lot of other non-software companies too, services or different B2B hardware, software, whatever. Basically get really tight and do it with you guys on okay, who are your ICPs at the account level, at the contact level? What do they look like? What are their pain points? What's your messaging, content, calls to action? And I take all that and build an outbound engine, lead engine in Apollo.io for you. And we kind of collaborate on that. So there's a couple links here on the costs and the process and everything, and then also an example video tutorial for a nonprofit called Linens and Love, which I set that up so you can kind of see what they gave me and then what I did in Apollo. But yeah, it's a great tool. If you want to get started or talk about it, reach out to me. Thanks.